I'm Ron Jackson with Acoustic Guitar. Today we're going to be talking about jazz reharmonization. Jazz is actually packed with harmonies that can sound really foreign to the uninitiated, okay? But with the knowledge of a few basic principles, it'll start to make sense. What jazz players usually do is substitute common chord progressions that people already know with different chords that add color and complexity, okay? If you're not a jazz musician, then learning jazz harmony might not seem particularly compelling, but whatever you play, folk rock, country blues, Celtic fingerstyle, or anything else, you can make up your own music with these kind of new chords, okay? And you can make it sound much more interesting. And it will actually help your musicianship in general. With this in mind, let's get right into this, okay? Now, we're going to talk about this in week 1 here in this weekly workout. In order to understand chord substitution, you should first be familiar with basic diatonic harmony. Now, diatonic harmony is basically chords formed from the notes of a given scale. Let's take a moment and look at example number 1. Example number 1 shows you triads or 3-note chords derived from the C major scale. So the C major scale is C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. Now what we're gonna do in this exercise, we're gonna actually play each chord that in 3 notes with the scale going up like this, with the bottom note of the scale being the root of the chord, okay? Going up the scale. So here's example number 1. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, I would practice that everywhere on the fingerboard in different fingerings and different positions. I have it particularly written out here like this, in this area here, but I would actually play it up the neck on the same 3 strings, for example, as far as you can reach, and then play it across the neck. Every possible fingering that you can think of, okay? In all octaves, till you know it inside out, okay? Now, in example number 2, depicting 7th chords derived from the scale, okay? You'll be using Roman numerals later on in this workout, so we're gonna actually put Roman numerals to this as well. You'll see that in example number 1 as well. For major chords, it's gonna be a regular uppercase Roman numeral. And then for minor chords, you're gonna see the lowercase Roman numeral, okay? So the 1 major 7 is gonna be for the C major 7, D minor 7, or 2 minor 7 is gonna be for that, etc. So let's play through example number 2 in major 7s. Be careful of the fingering with this one. Look at the tabs to follow my fingering. Here we go, example number 2. 1, 2, 3, 4. What I would do also is practice this every possible fingering up the neck as well. In this example, I'll just show you the basic way, but I would practice up and down the neck like this on the same strings, as far as you can reach. I have a cutaway on my guitar, so I can reach. I would actually go across the neck too like this, on the 4th string, root. As far as you can reach, you see that? Etc. From the 6th string root 2 as well, okay? Now let's get into some substitutions now that we have the basics of the triads and the seventh chords in the key of C. We're going to be basically staying in the key of C this whole lesson. So in example number 3 is a basic progression in the key of C, going from the 1, 4, and 5 chords. In this case, it's going to be C, F, and G7. Example number 3. 1, 2, 3, 4. That was example number 3, and that's a very, very basic chord progression. Now let's spice it up a little bit in example number 4. To make the chord progression more interesting, in example number 4, on beat 3 of bar 1, we're going to substitute the C chord with the C7 chord. And then on beat 3 of the next bar, we're going to substitute the F with an F minor chord, which is known as also as mode mixture, okay? Going from the major to the minor, which is the parallel of the key of F, the parallel minor, which leads to an interesting harmonic color. So let's play example number 4. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now in example number 5, we're going to throw in some bass notes other than the roots to mix it all up and make it more interesting. This is actually very common in jazz to throw the bass notes, different bass notes to make it more interesting harmonically, okay? Now for example, on beat 3 of bar 1, we're going to play an E, which is on the bottom of the chord, which is actually the third of the dominant 7th chord, the C dominant 7th chord, okay? As we're gonna make that the lowest note, so it's gonna sound like this. I'm gonna throw that in there instead of having the root here. Which leads smoothly to the F like this. Now you'll hear the 1, 4, 5 progression has been transformed from the last few exercises, and you compare example number 5 to example number 3. Also, you'll see that I put the same minor chord in there, and then on bar 3 of example number 5, you're going to see that the C chord has a 5th on the bottom, okay, and then the C7 has a 5th, or the G on the bottom, and then we're going to see that the F chord has an A on the bottom, which is the 5th, which actually is 3rd, excuse me. Then the F minor chord is going to have the A flat, which is going to have the flat 3rd on the bottom, like this, okay? Then we're going to have the 5th back on the last bar, which leads to the G7 nicely, back to the C. So let's play through example number 5. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. You notice how at the end of example number 5, bar 3, I started using hybrid picking because there's a lot of open strings in between those notes. I suggest using hybrid picking or fingerstyle when you play the last 2 bars of that example number 5. That was week 1. Week 2. This week we're going to talk about the 1-6-2-5-1 progression, which is the bedrock of so many jazz and popular songs. We're going to subject it to a variety of reharmonizations. Let's begin with the basic progression in the key of C again, in example number 6. Be mindful of the fingering again. Here's example number 6. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's number 6. Now in example number 7, we're going to actually replace the 1 chord, which is a C major 7, with the 3 minor, which is a very common substitution for the 1 major 7th chord. So here we go. Example number 7. 1, 2, 3, 4. Remember to practice all these exercises if you possibly can in different keys, preferably all 12, and try to figure out different fingerings like I mentioned before about the diatonic, triads, and 7th chords as well, okay? Now in example number 8, we're going to use a very common substitution, the 5-7 chord, or the 5-7 of the 2 in this case. Instead of playing the 6th chord, A minor, which normally occurs diatonically in that key, or naturally in the key of C major, we're going to play the A7 chord, which is actually the 5-7 of the D minor. Here's example number 8. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now we're going to combine the substitutions in examples number 7 and 8 and arrive at example number 9, which creates a pair of descending 2-5 progressions: E minor 7, A7, D minor 7, G7, which is an essential jazz move, we call it, okay? So here we go. Example number 9. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, in example number 10, we're going to turn the minor 7th chords into dominant 7th chords. And you'll have a series of 7th chords that travel counterclockwise, actually, down the circle of fifths. Now, astute readers will recognize this particular sequence of chords as a bridge to rhythm changes that is very common in jazz, named after this song by George Gershwin called "I Got Rhythm," one of the most common songs you'll find played by jazz musicians, actually. Example number 10. 1, 2, 3, 4. In example number 11, we substitute the A7 and G7 chords with the E flat 7 and the D flat 7 chord. This move is known as the tritone substitution. The root of the E flat 7th chord is a tritone or 3 steps away from the A7 chord, and ditto for the roots of the D flat 7 and the G7 chords. If this sounds confusing, spend a minute with example number 12. So for example, the E flat chord is actually 3 whole steps away from the A chord, which looks like this every 2 frets of the guitar. And vice versa from the D flat, every 2 frets, okay? Which makes what we call whole steps or the whole tone scale. Let's play through example number 11. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. In example number 12, we get into the concept more deeply of the tritone substitution. In bar 1, you'll find a G7 chord and its tritone substitution, which is D flat 7. As demonstrated in the second bar, the third of the D flat 7 and the B or C, which is the third of the G7, are the flatted seventh of the D flat 7. And you put that together, adding the roots of the D flat and G in the third measure. So look at this. In example number 12, the first two beats, you'll see that's a G7, and these two notes are the flat 7 and the third. Now on the D flat 7, these two notes, they're exactly the same notes, but they switch around now. This is a third and the flat 7. So on the G7, this is a flat 7, which is the F, and the 3 is the B. On the D flat 7, it switches around. The third is the F now, and the B, or what we call the C flat in this key, or the D flat, is the flat 7. So here's example number 12 for you. I'll play this for you. Example number 12. 1, 2, 3, 4. For good measure, we're going to substitute the original 1625 progression to one last variation. As directed in example number 13, we're going to keep the tritone sub on the third beat of each measure, but revert to the 1 and 2 chords, the C major 7 and D minor 7. Note the smoothly connected descending bass line, E flat, D, D flat, between the last three chords. So here's example number 13. 1, 2, 3, 4. I ended on the 1 chord for that example. So that was week number 2. Week number 3. In some instances, you can think of complex sounding chords in simple terms as triads over bass notes. You'll see that as slash chords actually. You'll see like a G, then you'll see a slash like this, and then a B. So that means G, a G triad over a B note. For example, the first chord of bar 1 in example number 14 is typically labeled as a C major 9. But you can get the same sound by playing a G triad, GBD, over a C note. As the next voicing clearly illustrates, and the second measure shows you also how to use a G over C chord in a 2-5-1 progression, another building block of jazz in the key of C. Here's example number 14. 1, 2, 3, 4. So you see that this is a C major 9, but if you put a G triad like this, GBD, and put a C on the bottom, it looks like this. The same chord. Now in a 2-5-1 progression, you could play it like this. You could also think of the minor 7th chord as a triad over a bass note. Now in bar 1, B1 of example number 15 shows a typical D minor 7th chord in 5th position. Looks like this. While the chord on beats 3 clearly shows a D minor 7 is equivalent to an F triad, FAC, over a D note, so it will look like this. This is like that F chord like this, but only using the top of the triad. So the F is here, A and C, and you can put the D on the bottom like this. Now you could try plugging this chord into a 2-5-1 progression as shown in bar 2. Example number 15. 1, 2, 3, 4. So now, if you're not a jazzer, you might not know how to make a chord if someone asks you to play a 13 over a flat 9. Now we call this an alter dominant, and this also could be played as a very basic triad. In this case, this happens to be an E triad over a G bass note, like this. And then we add the flat 7, which looks like this in example number 16. Which is a really cool sounding chord. Now on the third beat, it's the same kind of triad too. Here's an E note on E chord on top with the F here and the G on the bottom. The fingering is a little tricky. So in example number 16, you'll see this used in context of a 2-5, adding that G over C chord in the last 2 beats of bar 2 in this example. Example number 16. 1, 2, 3, 4. That was week 3. Week 4. This week, we'll explore various ways to spice up single chords rather than chords in a progression. If you're faced with a dominant 7th chord, for example, you might want to flatten the 5th, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, the 5th note in the scale. You might want to raise it or lower it. Lower it, that's called a flat 5th, or raise it. Sharp 5th, okay? So an example, number 17, we're going to show a basic dominant, C dominant 7th chord like this. And we're going to lower the 5th and raise the 5th. It'll spice up your chords a little bit. So here's example number 17. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now in example number 18, we're going to play a typical F major 7, okay, and we're going to do the same thing. We're going to add a flat 5th to that, or what we call a sharp 11. So here's an F major 7, and you're going to make a sharp 11, which is also called a flat 5th if it's within the chord, if it's down here, an octave lower, and sharp 5th. So here's example number 18. 1, 2, 3, 4. Those are cool sounds. Another way of making a chord progression more interesting is to move one of its voices around in what's known in jazz as a line cliche, or chromatic cliche, depending if it's chromatic or not, actually. In example number 19, we start with a plain old C chord, then we move its second highest voice, which is on the 3rd string, around in half steps to form C, C augmented, C6, and C augmented. So here's example number 19. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, example number 20 is based on the same idea, but the note that moves is the highest voice. Example number 20. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, the same concept is illustrated on the D minor chord in example number 21, where the movement on the second string results in a colorful D minor major 7, D minor 7, D minor 6 progression, which you hear in a lot of famous songs like Feelings, all kinds of songs. Here's example number 21. 1, 2, 3, 4. In example number 22, the notes on the third string are shifted around to create a D minor chord, then a B flat triad over a D note, the D diminished chord, which is also called a D minor 6, then back to the B flat triad over D. Now this recalls the sound of the famous James Bond themes, okay? So here's example number 22. 1, 2, 3, 4. That really sounds like the James Bond theme. It actually is. So that's the end of week number 4. Once you've absorbed all the chord substitution and reharmonization ideas in this workout, try it again in other keys. Practice it all over the neck. Now take these concepts and apply them to your own music, and you'll be playing with new depth and excitement. I'm Ron Jackson with acoustic guitar, and I'll leave you with this.